Bath Fitter, Rachel V. Hill, and DMAC. We've got a full show today. Will Peterson going to join here in just a second. Cecil Lammy's also going to join us because it's like Christmas morning for him with the NFL draft tonight. But DMAC, how are you this morning? Are you drinking all your coffee?
I'm drinking all the coffee, Rachel. All the coffee. I'm okay. You know, listen, when we were on coffee break, I did not predict 5-2, even though everybody wanted me to. But I did predict 3-2 Seattle. And, I was hoping that I was wrong, but that turned out to be exactly the case.
Yep.
And the bummer is there's no real obvious answer right now. And the sad truth is the Kraken may just flat out just be a better team as it exists right now than the Avalanche. Unless the Avs can get a major boost with the return of Cale Makar, it looks like this Nichushkin stuff was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
I'm still trying to comprehend exactly what went down last night because it was surprising. And we'll bring in Will Peterson, obviously, to talk about it because he's our Avs insider. But I was expecting, especially coming into the third, which was kind of like the big thing for me, I was expecting them to come out with a ton more energy, like just a little more amped up. And I even texted in our group chat for work and I was like, they didn't come out at all. I just felt like we saw nothing out of them and there was zero energy. It just looked like they were exhausted and it's just disappointing.
Nathan MacKinnon, speaking with Nathan MacKinnon in the morning, he speculated that we're too structured and we need to play, a little bit more aggressive, that they're just looking for the fine pass, maybe just a little bit too much and just pour some shots on net. But the problem is they're just not a great matchup with this Kraken team. That's the bottom line here. And it goes to the depth of the team, shockingly. And they just missed too many great players. And you could only do so much with just, McKinnon and Rantanen. Even Evan Rodriguez's goal yesterday, guys, come on. It hit off two different Kraken players to be Grubauer. I mean, good, you got a little bit of luck. But even that happened with 3 minutes and 40-something seconds to go when they pulled the goalie. I mean, these are complete desperate measures. 1 for 12 on the power play. I think Georgiev has more or less been who he's been. I mean, what we're seeing is more or less who he's been all year. But what we're not seeing is any contributions from anybody else on this team.
Will Peterson, good morning.
Hey guys, yeah, I mean, DMAC hit it on the head there. The depth was such a strength last year, and it's such a non-issue or non-factor this year that it's so disappointing because it just feels. I mean, Nathan MacKinnon played more than 27 minutes last night. 27 minutes for a forward, and then Bednar says post-game he may run out of steam, but now it's an elimination game, so if he has to play 30, he'll play 30. Mm-hmm. And that's just so much time on the ice for one player, over 27 minutes. And I got to say, the non-call on MacKinnon in the second period changed the whole game, in my opinion, because you could say it's a two-goal swing because the Avs tied 1-1 with momentum, should obviously get a power play. MacKinnon slams his stick against the boards in frustration, lets all 18,000 at Ball Arena and another million people watching on TV what he thinks about that call. And then, of course, sum up the series. Seattle goes down and scores 10 seconds later. So it was a two-goal swing with your superstar player throwing a temper tantrum. And then after the game, he says, this isn't 1975. The guy wasn't even within 5 feet of me and takes me out. Did say he has to control his emotions a little better, but he made it pretty clear that even still an hour and a half later, it should have been a penalty. To me, it flipped the whole game and potentially flipped the whole series. We don't know if they win that one or not if they make the call there, but they certainly don't start trailing 2-1 10 seconds later.
It's even worse than that. I mean, it's a great story, but bad for the Avalanche. The guy who scored that goal, I don't even know how to tie that was his first NHL game.
Yeah.
Not his first playoff game, his first NHL game. And the reason he was there, now he's a really good minor league player, really, really good. The reason he was there was because of Makar's hit to Jared McCann. So, you would think maybe you pick something up in a weird, not great way with McCann not being there. His replacement who had never played in the NHL, actually scored that goal. So, I mean, great story in terms of sports, but it's like the hockey gods are not shining their favorable light on the Avalanche. They aren't. And tired, exhausted. I get it. I was talking to a national hockey muggle last night, and the conversation was just the admiration for Tampa Bay. Like, seriously, how did they do it? How have they done it year after year? Because this team seriously needs to. I wouldn't be surprised. It'd be fine by me at this point if seriously they just were to lose Game 6. They certainly aren't winning the Stanley Cup this year. And I'd like to see them rested and reloaded for next year because I still think they have a great core group of players. What's disappointing, though, is we thought we were going to see a dynasty here. Unless something miraculous can happen next year, we saw the end of a dynasty perhaps last night. That sucks.
That does suck. And that puts a bummer on the show right now, D-Mac. But I also agree with you. What the Lightning have done year after year after year is pretty freaking incredible. And they're still very relevant because right now it feels like the Avalanche aren't relevant at all. The Kraken are having their way with them. It feels like time and time again. Now, Will, going back to your point, I saw the clip after the game of the face that Nathan MacKinnon had after they scored the goal. And I was like, oh, the dog is coming for blood in Seattle. And people were like, well, he should have came for blood when it was the third period. Like, we should have saw something else come out of him. He can't do it by himself. He just can't. I'm sorry, but he needs help. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of supporting pieces around him by any means.
Yeah, anyone blaming Nathan MacKinnon for that loss is silly. I mean, he scored a goal. He played more than 27 minutes. He left it all on the ice. Like, come on, really? We're gonna blame MacKinnon? Why don't we blame the Alex Newhooks of the world? Why don't we blame the Dennis Mulligans of the world, Ben Myers, the Matt Nietos? What the heck has anyone not named Nathan MacKinnon or Mikko Rantanen really even done in this series? I mean, they've had two players and no one else. You know who actually had a really good game too? Some guy named Val Nichushkin. Where's he been the last 3 games? So it's just such a small list of guys who have played well. Devon Toews has had moments, but also you could argue they lost game 1 because of Devon Toews. So it's no one but MacKinnon and Rantanen who are really doing their part for the Avalanche. You can't blame MacKinnon. And Rachel, if he's going to bring it in Seattle, I hope he does, but he's going to have an all-time game to get this to Game 7. And guess what I said last night on Denver Sports Tonight with Jake and James? MacKinnon's going to have an all-time game in Game 5 for them to win that. D-Mac's right. They're not winning the Stanley Cup because even if they somehow rally to beat the Kraken in the next 2 games, how are they going to have any gas left in the tank to beat Dallas? Any gas left in the tank, and that's only round 2. They'd still be 12 wins away from the Cup. If they miraculously get out of this series, I just unfortunately don't see a path they can win round 2 unless Nichushkin comes back, and even then, I don't think that would be enough.
Teams that have won Game 5 when a series is tied have won the series 78.8% of the time. You can't get your back more against the wall than the Avalanche have it right now. And with some reasonable thought, not that I think they're going to not try. I think they have been trying, guys. I don't think that's been the issue. The issue right now, sadly, is they've just lost too many valuable pieces to be able to overcome, a really solid, not spectacular, definitely not spectacular, but a really solid Kraken team.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing everybody.
Sorry. I'm falling apart worse than the Avalanche.
I'm seeing everybody.
Yeah.
I'm seeing everybody in the comments who's talking about Tampa Bay and how they're going to lose lose to the Leafs and such. But this is still 4 years. Like last year we were talking about 3. Like could they possibly three-peat? Like this is still 4 years of relevancy, guys. Like I mean, they're still the Avs literally could get bounced, and I understand that's the same for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But they could get bounced 1 year after winning the Stanley Cup, let alone being in the finals, winning 2, and then almost winning it again when they faced the Avs last year. Like, that's relevancy. That's also can be, in my personal opinion, close to a dynasty, if not a dynasty. And I know we can get into that, but a lot of people have, different terms they like to use when it comes to the word dynasty. But Tampa Bay is pretty damn close, if not already won, Will.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. If Tampa's hitting their wall in year 4, okay, they hit their wall in round 1, year 4. The Avalanche hit their wall in year 2, round 1. At least it appears that way. So, yeah, I understand the commenters are pointing out Tampa's going to lose their series. We all get that. But that doesn't mean they didn't do it for 3 straight years when the Avs haven't found a way to do it for a second straight year. But I will make one quick comment on that. D-Mac, you said we may have seen the dynasty end last night. I think dynasties can take years off. I'm not so sure I'm ready to close the championship window on this Avalanche team. You get Nichushkin back. You hopefully get Gabe back. You know, they could move Sammy Girard to create some cap space to bring in some more firepower. Guys, I'm just going to put it out there now. There are whispers, and I'm going to say they're whispers, but there are whispers coming out of Pittsburgh that the Penguins and Sidney Crosby are headed toward a divorce. Sidney Crosby's best friend is Nathan MacKinnon. You could connect a couple dots there. His deal is reasonable. He's got about $8 million left. Girard's making $6 million. EJ's got $6 million coming off the board. He'll be done after this year. More firepower, you want to talk about that? Get Gabe back, get Val back, and add a Sidney Crosby for the last 3, 4, 5 years of his career. And I'm not shutting the window on anything in terms of a dynasty with the Avs.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the Avs have over the years brought in sort of legendary older vets. You know, Paul Correa played here. Teemu Salami played here. I mean, there have just been guys that have come back. Peter Forsberg came back and all of that. And he was kind of at the end of his rope when he, came back with injuries and all that. I'm not saying that's the same for Sid the Kid, but he's a little bit older. But yeah, I mean, that would be awesome. And if all that happens and all that's healthy, then they got a shot. I'd make the argument if the Avs were just healthy with the roster as it was originally constructed this year, they would be in prime position. You just cannot survive all these injuries, never mind whatever the Nichushkin situation is. It's just too much. Frankly, you lose Nichushkin and Landeskog. You played last night without Nichushkin, Landeskog, and Makar in a playoff game. I mean, come on, guys. And like you pointed out, like I like Dennis Mulligan, I guess. I mean, he's shorter than me. He's a good little inspirational story, as maybe I am a good little inspirational story for underperforming short people. But like Alex Newhook is a ghost. He's done nothing. And you look around and you're just like, well, like Seinfeld would say, who are these people? And you realize quickly, even though Bednar's been telling us, you look around and you realize this isn't the same team. And Bednar has said it multiple times. I just don't think we've wanted to listen.
Are we being too harsh then? Because we're expecting stardom, we're expecting, a hopeful run in this playoffs. Are we expecting too much on an Avs team that's not the same Avs team that we were hoping for?
No, because we did not know Val Nichushkin would not be available for non-injury reasons, okay? So the answer to that question is no.
But that actually kind of adds to my point. Let me rephrase it. Are we being too harsh then on this Avalanche team because it's not the team we were expecting?
Well,
I don't think so. I mean, listen, Rachel, they need to beat the Seattle Kraken in round 1. I mean, this is Seattle's second year in existence. We talked 2 weeks ago about how it's the most anonymous team in the NHL. Like, who are these dudes? And they're getting outworked, out-hustled, outplayed, out-everything right now. Not winning the cup is one thing. A shocking round 1 exit to the Seattle freaking Kraken, that would be another. They're underachieving right now, even without their top players. And again, it's not because of McKinnon and Rantanen. It's because of their depth. And if I'm Chris McFarland and I'm Joe Sakic, I'm blowing up the third and fourth lines this offseason.
Do anybody know when was the last time a defending Stanley Cup champion got bounced in the first round?
Oh, that's a good one, Rach. I'm not sure. That's a good question, though. We should get on that one for a little trivia.
Say, Jake, if you could look that up on the back end, I would be curious because, it's definitely not a good look.
But hey, I mean, the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl, and then they had the worst following 6 years of any Super Bowl champion ever. I mean, teams do rise to championships and fall off the next year because oftentimes, look at the Rams. Look what happened to them. Sometimes they're just not built to last. I'm not saying the Avs weren't built to last, but any team suffering the degree of injuries and setbacks the Avs had, what the mirage was was how strong they finished the year. And we did talk about it here. We did. There were concerns about putting that pedal to the metal, gas to the floor so exhaustively that could have negative ramifications. And we did compare and contrast that to the Nuggets. We were worried about the Nuggets because they went 12-11 after the All-Star break, but they had 6 days off. And look what they did. I mean, I'm not saying there wasn't a hard-fought game in Game 5. There was, but more or less, guys, didn't the Nuggets, upon reflection, relatively cruise through the first round and now are rewarded with more days off before they get going against the Suns? So I think you see, I really do think it's bizarre. I think both teams have switched identities in 2 successive years. The Avalanche were the Nuggets of last year. The Nuggets seem to be the Avalanche of this year.
Okay, so the Blues won the Cup in 2019 and they lost in the first round in 2020. So it actually hasn't been that long, but it's still interesting. Well, Peterson, thank you for taking some time with us this morning. Of course, we'll have more Avs talk tomorrow as we will get ready for Game 6 in Seattle. But we do bring in Cecil Lammy because it's Christmas Day for him. How are you, Cecil?
It is so fantastic. It is draft day, and I am over the moon every single year, no matter where I'm at. This day means so much to me. So super fired up to see how it unfolds tonight and see what the Denver Broncos do.
See what they do. Okay, yesterday, though, you had some interesting news about Albert O and a team that could possibly be interested in the tight end.
Yeah, the Miami Dolphins have inquired about Albert Okwuegbunam. Now, it's contingent on what they do in the draft. They are looking for a tight end, probably in the first round. I was not told which tight end they like the most, which bothers me a little bit. But I do know if they don't get the guy they've targeted, if he's, scooped up before they can pick, then they will be calling the Denver Broncos and putting more pressure on them to get Albert Okwuegbunam. They'd be excited to have such a talent. And I even asked, hey, he can't block. And from what I was told, they were like, yeah, that's fine. So there is an urgent need for tight end in Miami. They're also looking for a running back, and Alberto could be on their radar. So we'll see what happens in the draft, and we'll see the Broncos themselves in the tight end market with or without Alberto. The Broncos will draft a tight end this year.
What could the Broncos possibly get in return for Alberto? Are we talking draft picks? Is there a player in Miami? What could we get back?
I wasn't told that, but if I was just to guess, it'd be like a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick. So it's another late round dart for George Paton, which does have value. I know people will be like, it's a 6th rounder, who cares? No, there's starting talent on day 3 in this draft, and certainly in the 3rd round. If the Broncos do not move up, the 3rd round will feature starting caliber talent at running back, at tight end, at edge. This is an incredible edge class, some pretty good corners there as well. So, I know Broncos fans, maybe it's the draft and it's lost some luster because they're not picking in the 1st round or even the 2nd round. I would say this, they've got the talent to find talent starters in that 3rd round, or they've got the wherewithal to move up in this draft, and we'll see if they in fact do just that.
Okay, 3 players the Broncos could move up for, and first one includes a tight end that you did over at denversports.com, Luke Musgrave.
Yeah, Luke Musgrave, nephew of Billy Moose, Bill Musgrave. Mini Moose, I think is what Brandon Stokely called him yesterday, but he can do it all. He is a blocker. He is a receiving threat. He's a weapon as a receiver. Other tight ends in this class, Dalton Kincaid, for example, the Utah kid who's my number 1 tight end, he's just a receiver. He's an incredible receiving weapon. Musgrave gives you both. He is that blocker. He is that guy that can help out in the run game, which the Broncos want to run the ball a lot. Musgrave, who was here for a top 30 visit. It was one of the curious top 30 visits that the Broncos had because the other ones they had were a bunch of undrafted guys. Jack Coletto, who's Musgrave's teammate at Oregon State. They're talking to all these guys who aren't going to get drafted. And then they talked to Luke Musgrave, and that was kind of weird because Musgrave, I had him as a 1st rounder in my one and only mock draft to Cincinnati. I think he will be one of those borderline 1st round talent guys. The talent's certainly there for him to step in and start. And just from my observations, again, we're not getting much information from Dove Valley. They don't really like Greg Dulcich, and they may trade Albert Okwuegbunam. So the need at tight end is there, and Musgrave can do it all.
Okay, so let's go down to the Greg Dulcich part of it, because it's kind of starting to become more and more clear that they're not a huge fan of him. Why could that be?
He's I want to be nice, Rachel. It's draft day. I'm in a good mood, which is rare. You know this. Like, hey, Cecil's actually smiling today and not yelling about the Broncos. But Dulcich, I'll be nice. Dulcich is hurt all the time, and he's one-dimensional. Okay, fans can love him, and he's got great hair. And, hell, he is a weapon. We know he's a weapon when he's healthy, but he can't block. He doesn't have the body type of a football player, honestly. And, they're just going to look at the situation and go, we need a guy that can do more. A guy like Luke Musgrave is more of a Mark Andrews. And you see what Mark Andrews has done for the Baltimore Ravens. He pushed a first-round tight end out the door, Hayden Hurst, because they drafted 2 tight ends that year, one in the first, Hurst, and then Andrews was a third-round pick, top of my head. But when you get that you get that guy that can do everything, that doesn't need to come off the field. That's the true threat in today's NFL, especially with the pendulum switching back. And here in Denver, Denver's at the forefront of that pendulum switching back to more of the ground game being featured. So that's where Musgrave comes in, and a guy like Dulcich, more of a luxury, not a player you can start and rely on.
Everybody wants a Travis Kelce, a Gronkowski, that big body that can do it all and be a superstar. Do you see that out of Luke Musgrave?
I don't see it. That's Kelce, Gronk. They're different. They're different animals,
level.
right? They're just different types of tight ends, and they're the rare tight ends, like incredibly rare. But Mark Andrews, that's who I have as a fit. I don't like to take some of the best, and we can say Travis Kelce might be the best tight end of all time. I don't like to make those sort of comparisons for these players, but Mark Andrews, that's a really good player. That's a perennial Pro Bowl player every single year. So, yes, Musgrave would be a threat for this team. He'd be a weapon for this team, and he'd help him out with the ground game, and he wouldn't be a tell. That's the problem with Greg Dulcich. If he's on the field, he's not blocking. And if he is trying to block, it's not going to be very good. So with the way this team wants to run the ball, an upgrade to a tight end, whether it's Luke Musgrave moving him up into the first, whether it's a Luke Schoonmaker in the 5th, like that's where the Broncos have to decide.
Where do you anticipate him going? How far do the Broncos have to move up?
First round.
Okay.
First round. He's borderline first, second. Again, I had him to Cincinnati in my one and only mock draft. So, yeah, that's where he should be going. It's a great tight end class. 3 or 4 tight ends may go off the board today.
Okay, sounds good. Number 2 on your list is Hendon Hooker, who lots of people are very, very high on. And honestly, I think they should, despite the injury. Excuse me.
Yeah, well, D-Mac's high on him, right? Because he's like, that's a first-round talent. So, yeah, take him in the first round where you have that 5th-year option. Now, there is a special way, even though the reports yesterday, and it's very interesting when reports come out the week of the draft. Don't get me started on the C.J. Stroud slander, basically. I mean, what C.J. Stroud's going through. I'm a big C.J. Stroud fan now because the stuff he's going through pre-draft, no player should have to go through that with these bogus tests. Oh, my God, his cognitive scores, like whatever. C.J. Stroud can play. Will Levis can't play. We'll talk about that later. But Hendon Hooker can play. And he's one of those guys like the report said yesterday he'll be ready for week 1. Okay, he doesn't need to be ready for week 1. I don't think there's any sort of scenario where he's going to be starting as a rookie. And because you can put him on NFI, non-football injury list, you kind of get an extra year on top of that. So you don't necessarily need the 5th-year option that the first-round picks get. But if you wanted to, and not really put any pressure on Russell Wilson, as I highlight in my article, that's the great thing about Hendon Hooker. You get a first-round talent, a franchise-level quarterback, and there's no pressure on Russ because he's probably not going to play this year at all or even suit up for any games. So it's kind of see what you've got in Russ, but know that you've got a Hendon Hooker as your potential franchise quarterback for next year.
What does that mean for Stidham, though? If you're gonna go after Hooker, is he just your backup plan for this year, and then you possibly move on and you go with your new drafty quarterback, or are we gonna go into a quarterback battle between Hooker and Stidham?
I don't want to offend Sean Payton. Stidham's just a guy. I mean, for the love of God, like I understand he sees something in him, and that's fine. There is a little bit of something there with Jarrett Stidham, but I don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves. Hendon Hooker is a true potential franchise quarterback. Stidham's like a nice starter. And I look at it the way I look at the 49ers, right? In their situation where they have a Trey Lance for now. I don't think he's been traded yet. You've got Brock Purdy, who was the last pick in the draft. They bring in Sam Darnold. Like you have a bunch of guys that can play, and you have options for your team. You see how it shakes out. This is a brutal game, a brutal business, and quarterbacks get hurt. So be ready with that next guy. And Stidham is a very nice in case of emergency break glass type of guy, but I don't believe we're going to see any sort of rejuvenation of his career. It's not like a Rich Gannon who, was for years with Minnesota, was like a backup in Kansas City, goes to the Raiders, he's an MVP of the league. Like, I don't see that with a Jarrett Stidham. I see a nice spot starter if you need him. Hendon Hooker is a nice starter if he plays up to his potential and stays healthy.
Okay, sounds good. And last guy is a position the Broncos desperately need, and of course, that is the edge position. What do you like out of Andre Carter II?
Andre Carter has length, and he's got a wingspan of a 7-footer. He's 6'6", but he's got the wingspan of a 7-footer, so that length helps him get to quarterbacks faster, helps him get to the ball carrier faster. He's got bend and burst. I love the bendy guys, and he can certainly bend around the edge. And people say, well, wait a second, Army. There's a new rule now with most servicemen that they will be allowed to play in the NFL instead of having to go do their Army gig. And obviously we thank him for his service, but like Andre Carter will be able to play in the NFL this year. That's not a concern. People say level of competition or RB. That's not a concern. He was at the Senior Bowl, and he proved that he could go against the nation's best seniors. Looked outstanding down in Mobile this year. So Andre Carter, opinions vary. Some people say first rounder like me. Other people say I've seen as far as like 5th, 6th. That's just dumb. And again, my rule in life, Rachel, don't be dumb. Let's talk about Andre Carter properly. The dude is a premium pass rusher at a premium position.
Okay, and I didn't ask this about Hooker either, so please answer for both. Where do you have to move up to be able to lock in both of these players?
Yeah, Carter would be more first round in my opinion. Again, opinions wildly vary about Carter. And Hooker, it's kind of the same thing as Musgrave. He's borderline first rounder, second round pick. You're going to have to move up from 67 to get any of these guys.
Okay, sounds good. And how are you feeling about the Broncos today? Are we going to see some moves be made, or are you still thinking, and they'll hold off a little bit?
There's part of me, and this is just the ornery part of me, Rachel. I will say honestly, there's 85% chance they don't do anything today. Okay. But there's the ornery part of me that says I'd love it for them to move in the first round, because this is the thing that they're not stopping. And I get it, and other things are going on and all that. That's fantastic. But this is the NFL draft. This event, which is the most boring thing on television, will get more viewers than the World Series, the NBA Finals, and the Stanley Cup Final. That's just the God's honest truth. So, like, we're looking at other stuff, which is great. Again, I'm the wrong person to ask this. But there's part of me that goes, damn it, the Broncos could make a move today. We got to be ready for it, because they're not just sitting around going, oh, not till 67, guys. Like, no, they're ready to make a move. They might make a move today.
Okay. So I'm intrigued, Cecil. I won't lie. I'm not feeling a big move. I don't think it's going to happen, but the more and more you talk about these players, especially Hendon Hooker for myself, I'm like, all right, Broncos, let's buckle up. And I know people in the comments are ready too. I'm trying to read. Cecil, if the Broncos don't move, who would you expect to be their first pick?
Yeah, their first pick would be someone like Keanu Benton, defensive tackle, Wisconsin. Again, saw him at the Senior Bowl. That's a fantastic pick on their defensive line, and they need pass rushing help. So if they do sit tight at 67, and we do get into Friday and the Broncos haven't picked, then you're looking at pass rusher, tight end still, and running back. Those will be the first 3 picks off the board for the Broncos. Of their 5, I anticipate that 3 of them will be on offense this year.
Okay, now real quick, first 5 picks of the draft. Let's see how well you nail them tonight, Cecil. Who you got?
Well, and here's the thing, and I didn't do any trades in my mock draft. I only do one mock draft every year, and I do have some very good information. I won't reveal it. I don't want to get in trouble with the teams I talk to, but there's some picks I know will be the picks if they're there. But we know it's Bryce Young 1, and then after that it's chaos. Houston's pick is up for grabs. Arizona wants to move down. Atlanta wants to move down. Chicago may want to move down. You've got a team like Minnesota that wants to move up. Kansas City may move up from their 31 position. Like there's a lot of things to work. And I'd say in the top 10, we might see 3 trades. We might see a guy like Mac Jones traded today from New England, possibly to Houston, so that New England can take Will Levis. I don't think Will Levis should be drafted in the first round, but like there's a ton of activity, a ton of movement. This is one of the most important days on the sporting calendar. Whether the Broncos are picking or not, this is a huge day. Monumental shifts will happen in the NFL today, starting tonight in the draft.
Okay, and well, even if the Broncos aren't picking, definitely tune in, because who doesn't love the chaos when it comes to the trade up, especially in those first 10 picks? You love to see it. Cecil, I know you're going to be on the radio all day long. What else you got rolling for us today?
Yeah, what else I got rolling is I'll be seeing what the Broncos do or don't do. Andrew Mason and I will be on Denver Sports Tonight from 6 to 7. We'll also be doing a digital show tonight, so stay tuned. Special edition of Orange and Blue today. Seeing what's left for the Broncos. If they don't pick today, who could they be picking? We'll have that information for you as soon as the draft is done tonight.
And of course, follow Cecil over on Twitter too. I'll keep you updated on everything going on. Cecil, thank you for taking some time out of your busy day. Merry Christmas to you. Happy Hanukkah. Enjoy the draft, my friend. We will get in though, because the Denver Nuggets played the Minnesota Timberwolves, and things got a little spicy for the Timberwolves following their loss on, what night was it? What's today? Thursday? On Tuesday night, guys, right? All right. Well, Jake Shapiro did a fantastic job yesterday digging into this story about Anthony Edwards. So, Jake, I want to make sure you have all the spotlight here. Break it down, how you came up, or how you came up with the story, how you came across the story, and how you got all these details, because you are all over ESPN, Sports Center, Bleacher Report, etc.
Yeah, and that's just doing the job. That's all it is. But essentially, if you watch the end of the game 5, and how it ended, Anthony Edwards, the star player for the Minnesota Timberwolves, goes up with a shot to tie the game at 112. Misses it, would have sent the game to overtime. Instead of staying around for the handshakes and being cordial, dude sprints straight off the court and into the tunnel. We all saw that happen. And a couple people on the broadcast that were watching noticed that there appeared to be some hubbub or like a chaos scene in the tunnel a little bit, but it was really kind of hard to pick up on the broadcast initially. So we got tipped off to look into that a little bit, and you could see that Anthony Edwards picks up a chair and kind of swings it around. You're not sure if it makes contact with somebody or whatever, but it's definitely worth looking into. So we started talking to some people, and what we found out towards the end of the day is, and I have the citation sitting right here on the left side of my desktop screen, Anthony Edwards was cited for 2 cases of third-degree assault because he hit 2 different women who were both working as ballerina employees with a chair that he picked up from the last row. Now, you can argue whether or not it is third-degree assault, because he has not been, he's not a criminal. Like there hasn't been a crime yet. He's innocent until proven guilty. So it's not necessarily, something that he is going to be punished for, but he could go to jail for up to 18 months, according to Colorado law. So this is not the way the Timberwolves wanted their season to end it in many regards. Mm-hmm. But you also have Anthony Edwards now coming back here for a court case in June.
Interesting. And so what we know essentially is both women did walk away injured. I believe they are fine. I think some people have stated that they've come out and said, yes, they had injuries, but they weren't serious injuries. And that they had to go get Anthony Edwards off the bus, and they had to stop the bus actually from leaving because they were about to pull out a ballerina, correct?
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they were trying to escape something or like they were trying to run away. Like, you would generally think that you're trying to get out of. Sorry, a source was calling me.
You have a birdie that you need to hop off with?
No, this one can wait. But you would be trying to leave the stadium as quickly as possible after your season ended in that fashion, no matter what. So I worked in breaking news for the Denver Post. Even the people that did the worst things in the world, far, far worse than Anthony Edwards, you as a journalist, you as a person should give them the benefit of the doubt, because I've met a lot of people in my life, and inherently most people are not that bad. or evil. And this seems to have been a foolish mistake from Anthony Edwards. And unfortunately, 2 people got hurt. And now there's going to be some legal action because 2 people got hurt. And whether you see the video and you say, well, that's nothing, that's a money grab or whatever, that's not for me to say as a journalist. But what is indisputable is that 2 different women are claiming they were hurt. And under Colorado law, that meets the criteria to be charged with 3rd-degree assault. Now, will he be prosecuted for it? That is definitely something we're going to see play out here. But well, it's up to the DA, it's up to the lawyers, it's up to all those things.
You know, it's fascinating what is acceptable on a playing field, excuse me, and what is not acceptable as soon as you get off it. For example, Aaron Donald was swinging helmets at other players, was smacking guys during a practice. I think that was a joint practice the Rams had with somebody else, maybe the Raiders, somebody like that. So here he is throwing, I think he had 2 helmets, and he's whirling around smacking guys on the other team. Well, because that's on a playing field, it's like there's a different law that exists for things that happen on the court. Jokic pushed Morris over on a court, blindside push, okay? Yeah. That happened on the court. The simple truth is, guys, as soon as a game is over and you're off that court or playing field, you instantly enter the real world, not this fantasy pro sports world. So your actions have consequences, whether they're unintentional or not. You just can't do certain things. If any of us were at work and we were frustrated and we took a chair and we weren't mad at anybody in particular, but we were mad about something going on, and we took that chair in the office and we whirled around and we smacked a couple people, we could get in trouble, rightfully so. And especially because there's a difference between, like, if he was running off the court and he just ran into somebody by accident and knocked that person over, I could say there's a reasonable degree of it's an accident. And accidents sort of happen. But as soon as you pick up any kind of object with no matter what the intent is, all of a sudden you're responsible for wherever that object goes. I mean, it's simple enough for Anthony Edwards or any athlete. I know how that is. They clear out those areas for the players to go through. Ball arena, I've seen it a million times. They're very good with that. They'll scream out, player, 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 and you are supposed to move to the side as if it's like a police car or a fire truck coming by. It's your responsibility to get out of the way. Well, when you look at this video, the 2 women were as far to the side out of the way as they possibly could be. So the person responsible for this is Anthony Edwards, the end. And the whole concept of, like, it's a money grab, it's this, that, the, or anything. I mean, that is to actually, like, put blame on the 2 women who were just doing their jobs, who were just in the way. And let me tell you, those security people, those employees are there for a reason. It's not by chance. They're not trying to watch the game or something. There's real reasons why they are there, okay? And for the most part, it's to protect the players and to protect the fans kind of from themselves. They're security, they're ushers. They have a purpose for being there. So I don't want to hear anybody come after the women or think negatively of any actions they do, because it's well within their rights to do so. That's my opinion on the incident.
Let me just add this. Reminder, this is a misdemeanor class 1. This is not a major criminal penalty that he's been charged with. 2, there are rules that you sign up with. All is fair in love and war. There are rules you sign up with as a combatant in a pro sport that do not apply to a security guard on the sideline. And third of all, off of D-Mac's point, I'm pretty sure the only law, at least that I'm aware of, that matters with intent is if you kill somebody, and if it's intent, it's murder. If not, it's manslaughter. So as far as intent goes, it doesn't matter with 99% of laws.
Real quick.
Just one more thought on that. The only thing that these women, I guess, could have said, no, don't bother, I guess, with the police. And so are we upset that women who got hit by a chair, or it doesn't have to do with anybody who got hit by an object? Seriously? Is there anybody that says they're not within their rights to ask the police to go ahead and cite the person that did that to them. Like there's something wrong with that. And like Jake said, this will be some sort of fine. It's a misdemeanor. It's a low level sort of thing. But why wouldn't they want to hold this guy accountable for his misbehavior? Even if it was impetuous and just, there's no thought to it. It was just a reaction bored out of frustration. I mean, if anything, for Anthony Edwards, who is a burgeoning superstar, no doubt about it. Hey, dude, like all of your other teammates were out there congratulating the Nuggets. The coaching staff was congratulating the coaching staff. The series was over. You were it. You were it. You were the only one that ran off like that.
Real quick, and my question on this one is, did he go up to the women afterwards? Like sometimes maybe you get frustrated and you like turn around and wail your arms or something, and of course you hit somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like in my mind, I just assumed that he did it, and that's why they also maybe filed with the police, because maybe he just threw it and then went off into the locker and whatever. I haven't seen all of the video angles, so I wasn't sure if there's anything of him like actually going up to these women and being like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like hopefully somebody does in that sort of instance. Jake, have you seen anything of that?
No, I'm not aware of any apology or any interaction after what we've seen with the Jets.
That's what pisses me off right there.
And the Timberwolves said they're doing an investigation and they would, look into it. I would think had he gone up at any point afterwards and apologized, that the Timberwolves would probably have said something like that. But I don't know. I don't know if that happened or not. It doesn't seem like it happened, but I'm not sure.
That's where I get frustrated. The other part of this is interesting, and I've seen a lot of people debating it over on social media, is should you shake hands afterwards? Should you absolutely stay out on the court and shake hands with the opposing team that won? Or should you have the ability to just be able to run back in the locker room and say, whatever, screw it? And I see both sides of it, so I'm curious to hear. Jake, I see you with a little smirk going, what's your thoughts?
Look, man, I was not the model sportsman when I was an athlete. I've been in several fights because of something that was said or done to me in a handshake line. I am getting off. I can go congratulate my opponent, particularly if it's this NBA and it's this tight circle. I can go do that in closed doors. I can send a text. I can go see them in the tunnels or whatever. I'm getting off the floor. I think sportsmanship is completely overrated in professional sports. I don't care for it. I like to think of these guys as actually, at war and rivals and things like that. So, no, I don't mind guys leaving and not shaking hands. I think it's a pony show anyways, and there's no real need for it.
D-Mac?
Yeah, wow. I love you, Jake, but I couldn't disagree with you more on that one. I think there's a culture to every sport. The culture of the sport is more or less how I think you should sort of comport yourself, okay? So the culture, for example, in baseball, after series is over, they don't shake hands. They don't. They go to the clubhouse, and that's that, and guys jump up and down and dogpile and all that. They don't do it in baseball, so I wouldn't expect them to do it in baseball. That's the culture of the sport. The culture of hockey is to line up officially and shake everybody's hand. That is the culture of hockey. So to not participate in that would be absolutely reprehensible. So no big deal in baseball to not do it because that's not the culture. If you didn't do that in hockey, you would be the world-class biggest giant turd. Then you have basketball and football, and they have a very organic sort of congratulatory thing. After the Super Bowl, for example, is a really difficult time to actually shake hands because you have hundreds of muggles running out there, and it's just, it doesn't actually make a lot of sense. It would be very difficult to do. After the NBA championship and after, these championships, that, again, is very difficult to do because there's chaos on the court. However, in football and in basketball, in general, the culture is to go greet somebody at the middle of the field after a football game. And in basketball, in general, the culture is to get together around the court after even regular season games, but in particular when series ends. Almost every single basketball sort of thing includes some sort of greeting the opponent. That's why, if you want to go back in basketball lore, the Pistons walking off the court past the Bulls goes down in infamy as one of the most unsportsmanlike things of all time, and is the reason Michael Jordan hates Isaiah Thomas. So there's a culture of things, and disrupting the culture of things, I think, is disrupting the sport. So whether Jake wanted to shake somebody's hand in a CYO baseball game when he was in 8th grade, and maybe I'm selling you short, when he was a star shortstop as a senior in high school, winning a state championship, I'll just assume the best, Jake. I guess that's up to you, Jake, if you can't really handle yourself. But the question is, should you do it? And I would say, whether you're good at it or not, you should participate in the culture of the sport out of respect for the sport.
I actually do agree with DMAC on this one. I think you just pay your respects, right? Eventually, there's only going to be one team that walks away a winner at the end of this. And so just pay your respects. And I know all of these guys are friends and they all talk very highly about each other unless there's some sort of rift. So I get your point, Jake, of, you can do this, but just take 5 seconds. You can easily go up to somebody, give them a hug, and then you can run out. I think it's very interesting. I love seeing the debates from people on social media, but I'm with DMAC where I'm just it's going to take you 5 extra seconds. And I know, even after March Madness, when the guys are bawling their eyes out because they've lost the championship, you still see a lot of them go up to other players and say, hey, you know what? Great game. It was a fun battle out here on the court. So I'm with DMAC on this one.
Well, let me be clear. DMAC mentioned it. Baseball is the only sport where this doesn't happen. I grew up playing baseball predominantly. That's why I believe this. I did play a lot of hockey.
Player too. Don't give me that.
Well, I played a lot of hockey too. And the thing is, and you, assuming the worst out of me, it wasn't me causing the drama. Things were always happening to me. I one time was taking a face-off with 5 seconds left in a game that my team was up 5-2 or whatever in. And, it's a meaningless face-off. And a guy comes over the top and punches me in the back of the head when it's a scrum for the draw, and it just ends up into a fight. And, I can't shake hands because I've been thrown out of the game for something I didn't do.
Okay, well, that's a little different. And you don't have to shake that guy's hand, Jake. But other players...
I'm sorry, what was the score of that game?
It was something like 5-2. I don't know. It was a blowout. There was a couple empty netters.
We love 5-2 here on Coffee Break. All right, Jake, I appreciate you. Great job on the Anthony Edwards story again. But DMAC, you and I were doing some social media stalking last night because people are still wondering, where the heck is Val Nichushkin at? You and I, we just went into the social media things and we found out a few things at Ball Arena last night, which I think is very interesting. So we're not sure if it's wife or girlfriend, fiance, Val Nichushkin's wife, fiance, girlfriend, whatever. Anyway, she has a brand and she'd post on social media. Well, Val Nichushkin went and liked the post, and then when you and I went back to look at it, the like is no longer there.
Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it?
It was.
So wherever Val Nichushkin is, I guess he's got access to his phone and social media.
Yep.
Wherever he is, the Avalanche are in contact with him.
Yep.
Wherever he is, he will not be returning, even if this goes to Game 7.
Yep.
It does beg the question, at what point, if any, does Val Nichushkin return to the Avalanche? It does sort of set up that conversation. I think all of us are just assuming that if they were to move on, Val would return. But I'm not exactly sure at this point why to assume any of that. Maybe. I guess we would hope that's the case because of his value as a player.
Mm-hmm.
But Rachel, whatever happened was incredibly serious. I mean, beyond serious. And likely, I guess everything in life to one degree or another is forgivable.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you can forgive, but somebody just has to, move on to the next thing. Maybe it's like, hey, you're okay, but you're not okay here anymore. And we've had millions of examples of that in sports and in life all over the place. So who knows? I don't know what the future is for Val. I've given up really caring about the specifics of what's happened because because it doesn't really matter at this point. I'll be curious when the story eventually comes out. I talked to a Seattle reporter yesterday, and she said that, yeah, they're working on it too. Mm-hmm. So we know that, reporters in Canada are working on it. We know we've been working on it. Other Denver media members, Seattle people. So it's not like it's not being looked at. It is. Mm-hmm. And so there's there's nothing left here except for the fact something happened that is looking more and more that Nichushkin was responsible for why he's not there. And if that's not the case, Rachel, okay, I'm happy to hear what it is. And I'd probably have a different opinion based on what the reasoning is. But if we were just to actually play this game a little bit and say, well, whatever, if this is an if scenario, but if whatever happened was caused by Nichushkin, not happened to him, happened because of him, if it's a happened because of him situation, Rachel, then what faith can you have on him returning for your team at any point? Because first of all, can you trust him? And second of all, how does that go over in the locker room? I mean, is that somebody you really can go to battle to? Now, let me back up. If it's something that happened to him out of his control, then sure, okay, we wish the best for him. We'll see you later, and we gladly welcome him back. But it is an interesting thought, Rachel, when somebody betrays the trust of the people that they work with, can you ever really gain that trust back? Not that you dislike the person, but can they ever work well within the group again? I believe in forgiveness. I believe in second chances, no doubt about it. But that's only a question the Avalanche can really answer, and that will be based on the circumstances. So this is growing to be more of internal Avalanche situation rather than a fan situation, because the consequences for the fans are already happening. He's not playing. They're not doing well. He's not there when they need him. So every consequence that could happen to a fan is happening right now. So knowing the specifics of it doesn't actually impact the fans more, aside from, help shaping their opinion about it. But if you want to play a drinking game, get in a conversation with a variety of people and just say, what happened to Val? And you will hear, if there's 10 different people, you'll hear 10 different rumors. It's pretty wild.
It is, and I will say it's impressive that all of this has stayed under wraps as well as it has, considering how many people you and I both know that are looking into this. At the end of the day, though, I just want to say this. We hope Val Nichushkin is okay. We hope anybody who he was with is okay. The point of the matter is, though, of you saying, like, if he did something or something happened to him, how that changes in the locker room, I 100% agree with you, because I think so many of those guys, Nathan MacKinnon stands out first of all in my head, who have sacrificed so many things in order to be where they are, and then to have somebody maybe who didn't, and of course we don't know everything. I find it very hard to see how the chemistry can go back after a situation like this where it is affecting their playoff run. Like, let's be honest, it is. Yeah. They're not the same team without Val Nichushkin out there.
Letting your family down, letting your team down, letting people down is just I get like sick to my stomach thinking about it. It's
Yep.
Everybody makes mistakes, okay? Everybody makes mistakes.
I've made plenty.
So nobody's perfect, definitely including myself. I've made plenty of mistakes that I wish I could have over again and apologize for. So doing something or letting people down, Rachel, it's as sickening and as heartbreaking as a feeling that you could ever have, especially when you're all working together for the common good. And you've done something that, you really didn't have to do, that you took some sort of crazy unnecessary risk that has backfired. There are cases in sports. Look at Eugene Robinson, who was caught with a lady of the night before the Super Bowl, the Broncos' second Super Bowl. That's a bad feeling. Barrett Robbins went on a, crazy binge before Super Bowl and didn't even show up for a Super Bowl. I mean, there are stories out there, Rachel, of athletes letting down their teammates. That is so much different than, say, Simone Biles, who just had a mental health issue in terms of confidence. I don't think she let anybody down. I think she was struggling with a serious mental health issue, and it just came at a horrible time, obviously. But you're not letting anybody down, okay? In my opinion, that is much, much, much different than, say, actionable behavior that you're responsible for. And again, I don't know if that's the case with Nichushkin. I don't. I'm just saying, and again, like I said, I don't really care at this point, other than the fact I'll agree with you. I don't wish ill on anybody. I don't wish, and if there's, so I'm not wishing ill on any person. I'll have less sympathy for people that do things to others that harm them. Okay. But, if you're just doing something to yourself or you made some sort of terrible mistake, I think it's forgivable for sure. It's just really difficult to trust somebody that would do something if they could avoid it when so many people are counting on you.
And I will just say, if there's anything you can take away from this update that's a very small one, is we know Nichushkin has his cell phone. He's on Instagram. So, you can kind of take that as a positive that things are all right and hopefully on a better track for Nichushkin. And hopefully we find out some news because the Avalanche would definitely need him back. Not that I see him returning at all for this
season.
Well,
I wonder, Rachel, like if he is really just not available for the rest of the series and it's not injury related, why would he be available, period? Like, again, we don't know. We don't know what the details are. So it's hard to put together aside from it's so definite that he's not available for this series. Well, why would we think he'd be ready for any series? Why would we reasonably think that? We're in this lack of information. It's hard to understand, what his role would be on the team in the future.
Okay.
Tough deal.
No, it is. All right, there are some hockey games tonight and some NBA games, of course, that everyone's going to be paying attention to along with the draft. But the Leafs and the Lightning, they're playing tonight too, D-Mac. And then we've also got the Jets and the Golden Knights. Those are the two games I'm going to be keeping my eye on. When you look at let's go with the Jets versus the Golden Knights, who do you like in this one?
Well, I'll take the Golden Knights, but I mean, top-seeded teams are going down left and right. I mean, at the end of the day, I'll take the Golden Knights, but I mean, seriously, who knows?
I know. What about for the Tampa Bay game?
I think Tampa's run is done. Toronto's acquisition of Ryan O'Reilly, even though he was not playing great for the Blues, he has really sparked that team. Listen, we talked endlessly about perhaps acquiring Ryan O'Reilly. It just was like, maybe he's done. Maybe he's at the end of his career, but look what they're doing. So, I mean, listen, they're a championship pedigree team, so I would never necessarily count the Lightning out. But I get it. I mean, we're on year 4 of, 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row, and now we're in the playoffs in year 4. I mean, the wheel that they've been on is exhausting. So I'll take the Leafs on that.
Those are some serious long seasons right there. But of course, as Avs fans, we all wish we could be in that position too, having won 2 and then made another appearance as well. It's interesting. What are you looking for the draft tonight? Who are you hoping can?
Rachel. I'm quarterback. I just love quarterbacks. I want to see where the quarterbacks go, and of course, I'm dying to see what Seattle does with that number 5 pick. That would be the Denver Broncos pick. They also, I think, are picking around 20, and I saw in one mock them jumping back into the first round, which they could do because of the Broncos' second-round pick. So they could easily get 3 first-round picks today. So what Seattle does has some, interest to me in a macabre sort of way, and just where the quarterbacks go in general. So that's it. And outside of that, there's just general curiosity. I love the stories. I love the storytelling, and I think this is the first time in years. I'm trying to think what we even did last year. So I don't even remember. How bad is that? But usually this day is filled with anticipation. I've hosted the fans draft coverage for a lot of time, more than 13 years. And so this is a very bizarre, rare night off. And so, there's really not the same coverage that's needed. We don't really expect the Broncos to do something, although I guess it wouldn't shock me. Sean Payton said it's easy to move up, which is, interesting. But if they move up, I would envision them moving up in the second round, Rachel, not into the first round. So I think it's basically a night off for a lot of us in the media. One more year of a night off, and then we'll hopefully get back to it next year. But it's odd. it's odd. So I don't really have the same passion for the draft, but I'm always interested in quarterbacks in this year's Seattle.
I know. Cecil's like so excited, and I'm like, it's the draft, and this is gonna be. What's actually funny and something interesting about working in sports is this is going to be day 9 in a row that I've worked, and I'm actually considering it an off day because we're not doing anything tonight besides me turning on my TV and just having to watch and I guess semi pay attention to see if the Broncos do anything. So I'm considering it an off day, even though I'm going to still work probably 8 hours today. But that's the world of sports that we work in. We love it. And I'm going to be interested to see what happens with that number 5 pick as well. And I'm excited too. I love watching all these players' dreams come true. It's really fun to see. It's exciting. The emotion is so fun too. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. to continue talking about the draft, see what the Broncos may do tomorrow. And of course, we've got the big Avalanche game tomorrow night. And then game 1 between the Suns and the Nuggets. We'll break it all down tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. We will see you guys then. Have a wonderful Thursday, everybody. See you in the morning. Bye.